Second half of our newspaper review on K24 this morning. Don't forget, we'll also be gazing into the crystal ball later on. And today it's all about matters, politics. Quite a pertinent discussion to have. Spoke to Professor Peter Wanyande on that particular issue. That's coming up in the next 15 right here on the show. But in studio, I have Gabriel Muthuma, Oliver Karori. On Skype, I have Millie Luanga as well, as we just discussed the meeting of the mountain that will take place as we move forward. Millie, when you look at the front pages of the papers, we're talking about BBI showdowns facing Mount Kenya, counties that will reject BBI cash offer. And really, since the ball now is in the county's court, how do you see this playing out as well? Because that will also be key in the agenda in terms of making sure those counties within the region support and, pass this particular bill. What's your take on this at this particular point as far as the counties are concerned?
I think that the window for those who wanted to totally and completely politicize the BBI process for for one interest or another is closing. And I say this because initially there had been cries and talks and suggestions or very strong recommendations that this BBI process is not time ripe for it as of now, that it is not what we need as a country now. And the voices that were calling for that, drawn from both politicians, particularly politicians because they sway a larger population, and civil society, religious leaders, it has now come to pass that the process is running. Like it was once being said that the train had left the station. Indeed, it had, or it has. And we see that already public resources are being put into the process. IEBC has approved, and now it goes to the counties. And the counties discussing that is still going to be public resources. So I think if there are people who really love the people and stand there not or are engaged in politics, not for the primary cause of their own personal interest, but to promote the interests of the people, then now they need to speak to it. Is it good or is it bad? And if it is bad, why is it bad? Because the draft is already there. What in the draft is going to take people 10 years back or 2 years back? What in the draft is going to take people 2 years forward or not forward? Because this thing of telling us it is not the time now, I think is water under the bridge. And it is a fake story as at now. So I hope that when the counties begin to have this conversation, that the counties will be able to speak to the reality of what the proposals are, whether it will actually improve the ability for county executive to, or the county governments to be able to deliver to the people much more. And they should be able to speak to this. And if they don't have the information, they have all the resources at their disposal for them to be able to get support and for them to be able to get as much information from the various interest groups within their counties that would help them know what the people think. Because now really it should be about the people. The resources are already being expended. So how do we make sure that those resources don't go down the drain? We got money and money went, we are told 2 billion per day, went down wrong drains. So how are we going to make sure that what we're already expending works for the people so that we say no, knowing that it is really not good and it was not going to improve our lives in any way, or saying yes, knowing that yes, it definitely will tweak the constitution to a more positive aspect.
Oliver, you've said that it's a high time the president thinks about uniting this country as he leaves, exit the stage. It's something he's also voiced when he was asked what he wants his legacy to be. It's a united Kenya. If you were in the room with President Uhuru Kenyatta, how does he do that with the Building Bridges initiative as it is right now? Politicians have taken sides on this. It's also trickled down. How does he salvage this moment and bring everyone back to the table and move it forward?
You know, Jeff, whatever is happening to President Uhuru Kenyatta is akin to a bishop of a church preaching against alcohol, but he's seen in a billboard somewhere promoting the same brands he's preaching about. How will you feel today if you are to wake up and see your bishop advertising one of the best whiskies in those billboards in town as you come to town? It's the same thing we are here. We are telling Kenyans, building bridges will unite you. But the things we are doing after talking about building bridges are not uniting Kenyans. What we need at this juncture is an honest discussion going forward. This Kenya as an enterprise, we really need to talk about, is the unity of this country sustainable going forward? Is the way we are doing politics sustainable going forward? Ask yourself this. Kibaki left this country united and prosperous. How many Sagana meetings did Kibaki do? We need to begin from there. And what is Uhuru Kenyatta doing wrong that Kibaki got it right? That is where the advisors and the strategies of the president need to begin from. They do not need to reinvent the wheel. The wheel is already round. What you can do is just change the models. But the right thing to be done and ought to have been done is to make sure that what makes a normal Mount Kenya dweller or resident being involved in so much political turmoil. This is the first time we are seeing Mount Kenya this restless. We need to ask those people who work for the president and offer him political advice and strategy, need to ask themselves, where did the rain started beating them? If it is issues about import and export, let them fix that. The other thing is this, you do not win a discussion by belittling another discussion. If you are to go today to Mount Kenya or any other region of this country, you don't go there to fight one narrative just by not bringing solutions. The problem we have currently is we have politicians who want to be seen with a crowd somewhere, but with no solutions. If you have said William Ruto is bringing hustler and the wheelbarrow brand of politics, bring another alternative so that you people discuss two things on the table. But you cannot. By doing that, the negative effect of that is that they are popularizing that thing. So if we really need to talk about BBI and everything, let us go and focus on BBI. If it is about the unity of this, the mountain, let them go and talk about the unity. But that has a reverse negative effect. Because, look at it this way, Jeff. Tomorrow, or the day where those things will happening in that Sagana 3, projects that have been done in Mount Kenya will be enumerated. What will somebody in Tana River think about? How Kenyan are they? Or which class of a Kenyan are they? That is the question we need to ask ourselves. And that is where we need to ask NCIC that at some point, what is the point? When do we see negative ethnicity? And the dangerous thing is that when it is being promoted by none other than the head of state, those are the questions we need to ask. Where are our anthropology scholars to tell us what are the effects of whatever is happening? Because my fear is, if tomorrow the president lands there, he says we have done 6,000, let's say 1,000 kilometers of tarmac in Mount Kenya, Mau Mau, whatever, it is not a bad thing, but the thing you leave it, when you leave, you do not provide the same information to a person who comes from Marsabit or Wajir, they might think that one region is being favored. And that is why I'm saying bringing the president to those meetings bring disharmony. But at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what did Uhuru Kenyatta predecessors do while faced in such a circumstance? The other thing is this, Jeff, sorry. We really need to ask ourselves, why have we put so much premium in succession politics? It will actually happen in a day and it will be over. Why? But the problems facing this country are eternal. If we do not deal with our debt, the president told us when speaking to a Kikuyu radio station that 2 billion is lost daily. You ask yourself, but we need to go and borrow 1 trillion to come and work on the budget. Why don't we just end the leaking of 2 billion? That 2 billion times 365 will have around 750 billion. So we'll just borrow 200. Can you see the things we need to worry about?
Gabi, for a region that some people might say were offered a lot of goodies, they were given a cherry revolving fund, they looked into tea, they looked into coffee, surely this region should be satisfied with what the president has done so far. Yet, he still finds himself going back again. Even as a politician, clearly he's not hitting the mark for the people.
If you look at that region, and this is a region that I've really traveled, almost in every corner, and I've done this deliberately to try and understand why is there a lot of animosity. There are some of the things that, for the longest, they've never actually come to the fore. Foremost, if you look at some of the academic institutions from that region, dilapidated, just like every other place you would call or you would want to see developed. And if you look at the amount of taxes that come out of that region, look at a place like Meru. You will find even the academic institutions are way, way, way dilapidated. So there are issues that they are trying to bring to the fore. If you look at the Mira business, it's really come to almost, I mean, it's has really reduced significantly. There was a time that industry alone was, I think, to the percent of 18 billion a year or 20 billion a year. Now, it does not even get that close. So you will find people trying to reinvent themselves, but come back to the annals of the economy. They will keep insisting on wanting to know that which was promised to them has actually been brought forth. It hasn't. Just the other day, you had them complain about their population versus what they get. This is a conversation that they thought by now would have been sorted. It has not been sorted. Now, I've always said, if some of these things are going to be sorted through BBI, let the architects come and explain, because my worry is that that message is not getting to the mama mbogas. That's why many people had suggested, first of all, bring these copies. Even the president himself was actually on the front line, pushing people to read that document. Get the best advantage you can to understand that document, because he believes himself that it will make change. Now, that is all you need to communicate to Mama Mboga. Let her understand that such will be impactful to her daily life. And once she does that, then you're okay. There cannot be, Jeff, there cannot be that statement that you've said that they should be okay. No society should be okay, because things evolve on a daily basis, things change on a daily basis. If you go to where he comes from, the challenges that were there 20 years ago have already been solved, and those that are there now are new challenges. So you must have a leadership that is cognizant to the changing tides, and the challenges that keep coming, are addressed, and addressed urgently. For instance, look at what COVID presented. You had kids who did not go to school. By the way, they were not learning. Yet, you had some of those children who were at home and still learning through the virtual platform. That just tells you that we are not out of the woods yet. How can we make it in such a way? And that's why, you see, when I was in 2013, when Jubilee was coming into power, I think the laptop thing, people did not understand it. Okay. It was a grand idea, Jeff. Think of it. What if it was properly implemented and then COVID hit? You know what? All school children in public school would have been attending schools virtually. You get the point? So sometimes it is good to understand that the leadership of any party or the leadership of an administration that comes in may have a bird's eye view to the future. And if they implement that which they know to be a life-changing a process, then I guarantee you, people will always sing their praises. Not because there are not other challenges, but because they've solved a bigger piece of that challenge. That one was a great idea. And I think any person coming in, Jeff, because we do not, COVID hit once, it may hit again. Any person coming in to take over from 2022, I can actually beseech them to go back to that laptop project.
Let me bring Millie in. We have 30 seconds to go before we get into our crystal ball. Millie, very quickly, even as we draw the curtains on this one, because as all politicians are interrogating and urging the citizenry to read this document for yourself, yet the citizenry are asking, why is this document to be read? So even as we move forward, what really do you make of that statement in itself? Are they being sincere even in this particular urging of the people to go and read something they can't access?
I think that it is in circumstances such as this that leaders emerge. When you embrace an issue that is of import to the people and you go out there and you give them that information, then people begin to see your leadership style. So I hope that, or the leadership in you. So I hope that some people will grab this opportunity for them to be able to do that. Because why should you be telling people to read a document when you're not summarizing the document to them? the least you can do is that at each of those occasions, sambaza and give people and tell them, go and take it out to the other people so that they can read.
Okay.
And then give them the highlights from your opinion. So I think that much as we had also seen leaders emerge in the past telling us that, see, I stood for this. Look at even somebody like Senator Kangata, who I think the first time I saw him in the limelight was when he was a lawyer in the case of the CJ and etc. And people emerging from such situations when there's abuse of rights of those who feel oppressed and coming out and people seeing that there is something and you stand for the interest of the people. Because the truth of the matter is that even as the mountain region is retreating now to talk, I think that the reality as to what the mountain people face and will continue to face for the next decade or so can be protected or not protected by any amendments that come to the laws of the country. Electoral processes, which includes identifying boundaries and constituencies, will impact not just all the regions in this country, but largely, of course, the overpopulated regions such as the mountain. So we hope that the leaders will come out very, very, very strongly, not necessarily amongst the political leadership that is currently sitting, but including leaders within the region who will grab this opportunity for them to be seen as being able to speak to the people truly, so that the mountain can come there with a voice. Is there a gain for us or is there a loss?
Okay, Millie.
And must we people stand for this or not?
Okay, we'll have to leave it at that particular point as far as this conversation is concerned. As always, many thanks, Gabriel Muthuma, Oliver Karori, for making time this morning. Millie Luanga as well, joined the conversation via Skype. Thank you so much for being on the show this morning. We need to switch gears a bit and talk about our K24 Crystal Ball. Now today, presidential candidates, referendums, and political alliances are likely to be critical issues this year as we get closer to the general election next year. What's the ultimate fate of the BBI? Where does the hustler versus dynasty narrative ultimately end up? And is the 2022 election ultimately a two-horse race between Dr. William Ruto and former PM Raila Odinga? Or could there be a dark horse candidate that could upset the political arithmetic? It is all about matters politics and statecraft when I spoke to Peter Wanyande, a political scientist at the University of Nairobi, as he gazed into a crystal ball. Prof, welcome to the K24 Crystal Ball. Thank you so much for making time to be on the show today. And like we told you, for you, we want you to gaze into your crystal ball, and it's all about matters, politics for 2021. As we came from 2020 into 2021, the BBI narrative was really trying to be sold to the people. And the talk of the referendum that was imminent, that was supposed to take place, I believe, mid this year. From where you stand, with all the happenings that we've seen, the charm offensive the president has to do in the Mount Kenya region to sell the very document in his backyard, do you think it succeeds when it gets to the referendum, if a referendum takes place? Do the Kenyans vote and accept and approve of the BBI a plan from the president and the former PM?
Let me start by saying that BBI is a political process. Mm-hmm. The Building Bridges initiative was a political process. Mm-hmm. Entered into or initiated by the president and the former prime minister in order to deal with real political issues or problems affecting the country at that time. And you will recall that following the nullification of the 2018 elections, presidential elections, the country almost became ungovernable. The country almost became ungovernable. And that was difficult for the president to govern. But it also had international implications. The basic one was that investors were not sure that this was a country in which they would invest and ensure security of their investment. The so-called donor community, I prefer to call them development partners, were also jittery about the ungovernability of the country following the nullification of those results. Indeed, the opposition at that time called on Kenyans to boycott a lot of goods and services that were being provided by those perceived to be in government. So that was not an easy thing for government. And therefore, against that background, the government led by President Uhuru Kenyatta, I think, decided that the most rational thing to do politically was to end the hostility between the opposition and government, and more particularly the activities that were making it difficult for the country to be governed. So they got into some negotiations, right, that eventually led to this handshake. Now people tend to focus on the handshake, forgetting that the handshake was a manifestation or a symbol of something that took place before the actual handshake. And that is what I'm trying to describe.
Right.
That then happened. And it deals with about 9 issues that affect this country. Electoral violence, electoral disputes, issues of corruption, issues of devolution in terms of whether devolution is working or not as currently provided for in the Constitution, and many other things, you know. So it was dealing with that. All these things, when you look at it, my friend, are political, right? So the entire BBI process is political because it is dealing with political questions. It is therefore bound to have supporters and opponents. And I think that that should not worry us as Kenyans. Because in politics, like in many other activities, of course, you will have different or divergent views on how to handle those political issues. So for that reason, therefore, we should not worry. Now, to more specifically to your question, as to whether it will be supported, it will pass, so this is what I have to say. The referendum will be held to determine whether BBI and content that are therein are accepted or not. It will be held. My own prediction then is that the BBI will pass. I think Kenyans will pass the BBI during the referendum.
Right.
In terms of the percentage, it is not possible to say it right now, but it will pass. And therefore, what I think is going on right now is the opponents of BBI is trying to discredit the process. And in terms of trying to, the process of discrediting this process, they're also discrediting, unfortunately, the pioneers of this process. But eventually it will pass.
Because that particular narrative of the hustler and the hustler nation started, I think, maybe 2-3 years ago. And when it started, very many analysts and politicians as well said, this doesn't have the legs. It can't go the distance. In 6 months, they won't have anything more to say about hustling. 3 years down the road, now we have a hustler nation with people identifying with it rather. Do you think it gathers more steam to December, or what happens to this hustler narrative?
It will die.
Before the end of the year?
Yes, there's a lot of curiosity, but as people begin to understand what this actually means, and those who understand it begin to explain to the public the dangers of this kind of politics, this hustler thing will die. That I can predict.
Okay, let's move it along on this one. Elections next year. We're looking at the various people who could be front runners as far as that race is concerned. We do know, for one, the deputy president is key among those people. Who are the other candidates who you think are going to be vying for the presidency? We've had Raila, blow hot and cold on that one. The president has said he's not seeking another term in office.
He's not.
He has said several, he's not interested in that particular position.
Not allowed him.
Yeah. So from where you stand, who are the people you're watching to see how it will be when it gets to 2022?
You know, as a student of political science, and African politics for that matter, I would tell you that it would be premature to actually predict that so and so, so and so. But today, there are very, very many people who want to be president who have shown interest. There is Musalia Mudavadi, he has indicated. There is Kalonzo Musyoka, he has indicated. There is Oparanya, who has also indicated his interest in being president. There is, of course, Honorable Raila Odinga, who is also a potential candidate for 2022. But that question, to me, should wait a little bit. Why? Because my prediction is that, one, we are likely to have a lot of political fallouts, which will eventually lead to political coalitions, right? And those pre-election coalitions, at that point, then it will be clear that so-and-so will be the presidential candidate. But as it is now, we can say Ruto, we can say Musalia Mudavadi, we can say Oparanya, I even hear, of course, Kalonzo, I even hear Joho as a potential presidential candidate. But these are people who are showing their interest. But what I'm saying is that with time, these things will be, in a sense, discussed, which they will. And when they discuss, then we will get a presidential candidate out of these four, of course, Ruto being already determined.
Right. And it's interesting because I don't know whether it ties in with where we're taking this conversation, because also when it comes to alliances, what are you seeing forming in that place? From at this particular point in time, we've seen very many people meet and talk about probably forging some union together. We've seen Jubilee and ODM, courtesy of the handshake, have some sort of gentleman's agreement. When it comes at least to by-elections, you won't field a candidate here or there. Are there some key alliances you think might take shape this year with the poster that you've seen with various politicians?
There will obviously be a lot of alliances. I think it would, for example, be foolhardy for Oparanya and Mudavadi from Western Province to vie for the presidency. It will be political suicide. Similarly, I think it will be political suicide for Wetangula to stand as a presidential candidate when you have Mudavadi as a presidential candidate and Oparanya as a presidential candidate. Unless, which is a possibility, it is done deliberately to undermine one of them, which is very possible. You know, you can field the presidential candidate knowing that he or she will not win, but that his or her candidature will undermine the candidate of another candidate. That is a possibility. So the alliances I'm seeing, it's a possibility that the former NASA will probably come together to field one presidential candidate. It's very possible.
I think that's where we leave it as far as this is concerned. We have your predictions as far as what seemed to be, at this point in time, rather, the big event for 2021. So, God willing, December, we shall be back in this great office, Prof. Okay. And we shall see what of the predictions came true and which ones didn't, and take it from there.
No problem.
Asante sana, Prof.
Thank you very much.
Have a great 2021.
You too. Very good.